and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And then there were two, Brian Twining. Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit Quick Six. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. We are down to 2 games to 4 teams. We are down to 3.5 quarterbacks. It'll be interesting to see how we break it all down. But before we dive in and talk last week, talk this week, and figure out where to find value at the betting window. How the hell are you, Brian?
Let's just say I am looking forward to the NASCAR season, as my NFL picks have been absolutely garbage if you've been following along. I mean, I feel like I was on the right track with a lot of these, but you know, that's just the nature of betting, where it takes one weird bounce of the ball or one misstep by a team not going out of bounds or going out of bounds that, you know, whatever. It's still fun. That's why we do this. It's just money, right?
Just money. Yeah, after getting dump trucked by you in the NASCAR season, I have found a way to remind you that you can be on the other side. So next NASCAR season should be interesting. Let's review the picks before we get into this week's picks, talk the games, all that stuff. Let me share my screen. I should have done that beforehand, but that's okay. As you can see, it was a great week for me. It was a not so great week for Brian. Oh, hold on one sec. There we go. I had Jerick McKinnon over 19.5 rushing yards. Got there. Thank you. I had the Eagles minus 7.5. That was my favorite bet. I liked that
you did
a
call
lot.
that.
I was this close to just going all alt line 13.5. That's got to be the play. And I kept getting a little hesitant. I was a little worried. I felt like there was going to be a game where one of the non-favorites was going to keep it close. Obviously Jacksonville was able to do that. We'll get into that here in a second. And then obviously Cincinnati went outright. And then the Niners minus 3.5. It wasn't pretty. They didn't play their best game, but they were able to figure stuff out in the fourth quarter. That's another game I went alt line and was really hoping for like a fumble 6 or something wild at the end to try and cover that. I think I took it at 9.5, but overall good week, 3-0, hit all my bets. So I am very happy. On the contrary, Brian, Chiefs minus 8.5. They had a couple chances. They
were up by 10 with like a minute and a half to
They
go.
were making turnovers and they kept kicking it back to Jacksonville.
Yes.
And they were able to get a field goal and of course cover by 7 because Doug Peterson loves to cover. Even though they never really had a chance to win the game late, but kind of got hosed a little bit there. Obviously Patrick Mahomes getting injured was not great for that spread either.
I will say though, the fact that Chad Henne came in and actually killed the clock by taking them on that 98-yard drive towards the end of the first half, that probably actually helped them get closer to covering the number, because it limited the amount of time that the Jaguars offense saw on the field. Because I'm going to say this right now, like Jacksonville's offense is going to be one of the best in the NFL next season when they get Calvin Ridley added to this friggin' team. So, I mean, watch out for them in, you know, scoring props next year, player props, all sorts of crap. But yeah, the Chiefs, they shouldn't have left the back door open here.
No. And as a Titans fan, very excited to see, not so excited to see what the Jags are turning into, but very excited that the Colts are still interviewing Jeff Saturday for their head coaching position. So as long as we keep the Texans and one other team out of the picture and just have one team to go head to head with, I'll be okay. Saquon Barkley over 4.5 receptions. That was a weird game. Matt Breida kind of got a lot of that work.
Well, the thing that I didn't understand was, if you were just going to take if you were just going to run up the middle with a running back, why are you going to use Saquon Barkley to do that when he's clearly your most explosive player on offense? Find ways to get the ball in his hands in space, not in middle of front seven. Like I didn't understand the game plan at all. I know it got away from him early, but yeah, he was not involved in the passing game like I had expected.
Yeah, that game got late early, and it was never like it got almost too far out of hand too quickly for Barkley to really be on the field constantly working in. So,
well, he didn't even play like the last 2 drives, I think, for the Giants.
And then Josh Allen, I mean, he had possibly one of his worst games ever. That offense was stuck in the mud all day, did not look good. And guess how many passing yards he had? 265. You needed 4 more yards in a game where he did not play well. In a game where they were down, obviously, so we should have thrown more. But that was a wild game. I guess I don't know. I don't want to go too far crazy and go off the rails, but like, is Josh Allen more Matthew Stafford than like kind of the next elite guy?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would like to also bring attention to the fact that Cincinnati, over the last like quarter of the season, their defense has been playing quite possibly the best in the NFL, even better than San Francisco's, even better than Philadelphia's. And the fact that Buffalo still has yet to figure out their running game completely, like it's difficult for teams to move the ball when they're single-minded against a defense that has been as stout as Cincinnati's.
Yeah, there's a lot of obviously the Bills just need a running back talk, but like I'm not here for that as much. Like I think taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands doesn't really make a lot of sense, but
it's I think it's also too, like, we talk about Gabe Davis like he's like a T. Higgins or something because he puts up gaudy numbers in the playoffs, or he did last year, and then he's a decent fantasy guy. He's like a boomer bust, but in no way, shape, or form is this guy at the level of a T. Higgins or even quite possibly a Tyler Boyd, who Cincinnati's rolling out like 3 legit, really good wide receivers as opposed to Stephon Diggs, and then
he kind of gets lumped in as one of the elite wide receiver twos, like a Devonta Smith, like a T. Higgins, and he's just not that guy. He's a boom bust guy. He's a lot more like prime Deshaun Jackson, where there'll be games where he has a monster game, and then a couple games where you don't hear from him for a while, then he comes back. So 37-26 on the season. We have this week, we have next week. We'll probably figure out something for the Super Bowl. Maybe we'll do a few props or something to kind of mix in to keep things interesting.
Well, we got to do the anthem length, the heads or tails,
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll find a variety. If you have specific props you want our thoughts on, drop them down in the comments. We'll let you know. So obviously this head-to-head has gone my way, which feels nice. It's been a quality season for your boy for sure. So let's start in the AFC, and actually let's start in the NFC because that's the first game. So Eagles, hold on, wait one sec. 2.5, not 7.5, at home, welcoming the San Francisco 49ers, over under of 46.5. Where does your head go? Initial thoughts, all that good stuff.
Well, as far as Philly goes, this is going to be quite possibly their toughest test of the season of who they've played. Like, I don't think they've faced a defense that is this good or that is this disciplined as the 49ers. And then also vice versa in terms of competition. Like, this will be probably the best overall team that Brock Purdy has faced. And I know the Cowboys defense played freaking incredible last week. And if it wasn't for some bad passes by Dak and just, again, terrible coaching and poor discipline by them, that game may have ended up different. So for me, like, I like the 49ers. Just I picked the Niners coming into the playoffs. I think that they're a little bit safer in terms of their short passing game. I think they can keep the ball moving, get the ball in Debo's hands. They have Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield, who's an all-world guy. But for me, I'm looking more at the total. I think this is going to be a battle of defenses. I mean, take that with a grain of salt because my picks have been absolutely trash this playoffs. But
so take the over.
Because I think both of these teams are very run-centric. They're kind of built similarly in the way they like to pound on the opposing defense and then get big shot plays. which I don't think either one is going to be surprised by that kind of stuff. And Philly's passing offense, in my opinion, is very predicated on the shot play, where I don't think they can do sustained drives where it's like dink and dunk for 10, 12 plays of Jalen Hurts passing all the way down the field, which is what San Francisco is probably going to try to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, from the Niners' perspective, we'll see how banged up Christian McCaffrey is. He did have a calf issue. He had to leave the game a couple times. Eli Mitchell is still a guy they want to work in, so obviously that it's not that big of a departure. But McCaffrey is so important. Some of the big third down catches, some of the big plays, he was still able to come in and finish the game. So that is a good sign. But it is interesting to see how that limits him. The defense for the Niners was incredible. Fred Warner being able to stay with CeeDee Lamb in coverage is
ridiculous,
pretty insane. He's built like a defensive lineman, and he's able to run with CDs.
Yeah,
Insane. From the Eagles' perspective, Jalen Hurts looked like the MVP caliber player he was all season long. The offense was obviously great, but the difference between the Niners and Giants defense is night and day. So I'm really excited to see if the Niners can get pressure. I do worry a little bit about the secondary. They were lit up 2 weeks ago by DK. They were lit up by CD last week. I think if you're going to attack the Niners, that is how you do it. Running against this team will not work.
No.
So Miles Sanders unders. Kenneth Gainwell is going to be a buzzy name who had a great second half against the Giants. I think if this game is still close, he's not as highly used. So I'll pull.
And we could probably safely fade Boston Scott because he is not playing an.
He is not playing the Giants. He is not. But shouts to everyone who just piled on his touchdown. So rushing yards for Gainwell 9.5. Take the under. Everybody's pounding the over. I think that's interesting. And then 7.5 or 8.5 for receiving yards. Take the under there too. I think he was. I don't think it was. I don't think it was like a sign of things to come. I think it was just a nice,
Well, it's interesting looking back at the 49ers since their bye week. They've only allowed 2 teams to eclipse 80 rushing yards, and that was Seattle in the wild card round, which was a few kind of long runs by Kenneth Walker, and then the Raiders back in week 17, which that was probably a game that never happens again if those 2 teams play, when it was Jared Stidham's first start and everything was going right for the Raiders. Like, the 49ers defense has held every one of their opponents since the All-Star break. That's a total of 11 games under 79 rushing yards, 79 or fewer rushing yards as a team. So I think like running on them is like banging your head against the wall. I don't care how good Philly is at it or how good Jalen Hurts is. The fact that they have a Warner who can chase down anybody, or Dre Greenlaw, who is probably one of the best lateral linebackers in the NFL, like, you're not going to be able to do what Philly does on a consistent basis. Like, he may break a couple of runs, but they're not going to be able to move the ball like they did against the Giants.
Yeah. And like Hurts looked healthy, but he definitely didn't look to run, but that game got out of hand quickly. Like his rushing prop is set at 48.5. Like, I feel like the under, and obviously the juice is there on most books, but I feel like the under is very much in play there. It's probably like 20 yards rushing, 30 yards rushing. So even if you have to lay the -115, -120, it's probably worth doing.
The 49ers only gave up 213 total rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks this year. However, keep in mind, like, I know Geno Smith can run, but like him and Kyler missed a couple of games. Then they got to face the Cardinals with crap at QB, and then they got the Rams with Matthew Stafford or Baker Mayfield back there. Like, so I mean, some of those stats are skewed, but that's still that's pretty damn good.
Yeah. I'm pulling up their fantasy points against rushing quarterbacks. Let's see. So Fields had 28 yards. Russell Wilson had 17. Mariota actually lit them up for 50, and that was the game where the Falcons won. Remember week 6 when the Falcons beat this Niners team?
That's incredible looking back at that.
Yeah,
Is that the
Stidham
Niners' last loss?
yeah, I think
Yeah, they've
so.
won 13 in a row or something.
No, they lost to the Chiefs. They got dump trucked by the Chiefs, and they
Oh, that's
won
right.
one out. Jared Stidham actually has the most rushing yards of anybody since their bye. So
There you go. Exactly.
Herbert had 22, Dalton had 21, Gino had 18, and then Stidham had 34. Yeah, not a ton of runners in there. A lot of Colt McCoy and Andy Dalton and Taylor Heineke. Although Heineke is
Heineke
more
can
of a
scramble. I
scrambler.
mean,
Yeah,
none of
for
those
sure.
guys are to the level of a Jalen
No.
Hurts, nor do they have the offense that this Philly team
And
has.
if the
with
line's
Heisman
there
Tech.
and everyone's focused on the receivers downfield and he needs to run for a first down, he'll take off. But I'm doubtful that we see him get to 50 rushing yards, which I think you need to get to the prop. So that is where my head is at for that. I think there is some interesting value in the Brandon Ayuk props. I think this is an offense that is fine spreading it around. If McCaffrey's a little banged up, we obviously had the George Kittle game. Debo had a nice game a couple weeks ago. Brandon Ayuk receiving yards is really priced nice. Debo Samuel, they don't run him anymore. So if you can get a decent number, although that could be something they're saving for this spot. So rushing yards, 18.5. Don't hate taking the under there. You can actually get that as high as 20.5 as at FanDuel. Receiving yards is 50, 49.5, 51.5. So.
I almost think a guy like Debo, like if they are going to go to him in the run game a little bit more, you're better off taking the alt line on his rushing yards and taking it up to like 29.5 or 30.5, as opposed to just taking the crappy juice at -110. Like get that into plus money range, because he's just as likely to break off a 20-30 yarder as he is to just get a couple of carries for 19 yards.
Yeah, and you could also look at rushing and receiving combos. Then you don't have to worry about how they get him the ball, as long as they get him the ball and he gets his yards.
Yeah.
But Ayuk receptions 3.5. I like the over quite a bit. 46.5 for receiving yards. That's pretty solid. To score a touchdown, he's more than 2-1 on most books. I like that. So you could have some fun with this game for sure. Anything else here you want to hit on before we go to the AFC?
Well, I think, again, this is another spot too where you're looking at possible defensive touchdown. Like I think it's more likely that, say, Brock Purdy gets hit and fumbles and Philly returns it for a touchdown, or he throws an interception, as it is Jalen Hurts fumbling. But I do think an interception is possible for Jalen Hurts. But
people want to keep predicting the Brock Purdy falls apart game. I don't think there's a Brock Purdy
I don't think he's going to fall apart. I think this offense is built to like highlight his strengths as a passer.
Yeah.
That is one of Kyle Shanahan's like greatest assets, is building an offense.
Most books have the Niners at 4 and a 4.25 to 1 to score a touchdown. FanDuel has them at 8 to 1 if you can get that number. Kansas City, we'll talk about them in a second. They're also 8 to 1. Where is Philadelphia? Defense. Here we go. Bengals are 7 to 1. Eagles are 6 to 1 or 4.5 to 1. So interesting play there. I think both defenses have playmakers that could make some huge moves. Kind of wish Eric Armstead just laid out Dak and then he could have gotten the anytime touchdown there, but that's okay. Shift our focus and talk about the other game. And we'll go to I think the most interesting game. Like, I love what the NFC game is going to be, but from just talking points and I think this game is much more compelling. So I guess this opened as the Chiefs a slight favorite, 2.5, depending on where you saw it. Quickly went to 1, went all the way to Bengals -2.5, never got the full 3, and now it's back to 1. Chiefs as a short underdog at home. Obviously, people are trying to guess where Mahomes is at. There's been some positive reports, obviously, from the team. Some thoughts about him, how he's looked walking around to press conferences, that kind of stuff. Interesting spot for sure. I guess just in general, um, where are you at with this game and the possibility of Mahomes being limited?
Look, Mahomes limited, yeah, that's gonna suck for Kansas City, but I said this last week going into that game against Jacksonville. You have quite possibly the best game preparer from an offensive perspective in Andy Reid, with quite possibly this generation's and maybe possibly the best quarterback we've ever seen play the position
Yeah.
in Patrick Mahomes, just with what he's able to do. And even on one leg, they will be able to devise a game plan where he's getting the ball out of his hands, taking advantage of Cincinnati's two pass rushers on the outside, which is why, like, I mean, it's going to give away one of my picks, but I liked him last week just because Jacksonville sucked against running backs in the passing game. But I really do think, like, there is no way Kansas City wins this game if Jerick McKinnon is not involved out of the backfield as a pass catcher, and he's having one of those games like he had against Denver where he's going for 100 bills, receiving with like 8 catches, something of that nature.
Yeah, no, I like that call quite a bit. I think it's interesting too. Obviously, it's his plant foot, which is not great. But this offense has changed. So, like, if Tyreek Hill was still there and they relied on the shot play, it would be a little more concerning. But this offense wants to, stay low, stay check downs. A lot of Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was a fucking monster in that
Freaking
game.
monster, dude.
Like MVS is gonna run his go routes and gonna miss the ball and fall down and all of this typical MVS stuff. But Juju, McKinnon, Kelsey, a lot of quick. So this offense is
Tony, like this team is stacked, man. Like, how are we? I understand they don't have the pizzazz of Tyreek Cheetah or whatever, on the outside there with those big long bombs, but there's no way that Cincinnati's defense is going to be able to do to Kansas City what they did to Buffalo last week, which, because Buffalo is very, like, their passing game is Stephon Diggs, and then everyone else is like at least a tier below him. Whereas nobody knows where Mahomes is going to be going outside of Kelsey, which you're going to double Kelsey and then leave somebody on the outside one-on-one that you just run past you. Like, I don't think Cincy's going to do that.
Yeah, I guess the question is how mobile is Mahomes? Is Hubbard and Hendrickson able to get to him constantly? If they are, the Bengals will win this game and probably win it pretty comfortably. But if Mahomes is able to do his stuff and they're scheming players open, it could be interesting. So I was looking back because these two teams played in Week 13. The Chiefs were 2.5-point favorites at game time. In Cincinnati. Obviously, the Bengals weren't playing their best ball. That's kind of when they got really hot. They ended up winning that game 27-24 and kind of went on their hot streak and have obviously been playing much better. And now and obviously Mahomes is a little bit banged up, but this line has moved significantly. So basically what this line is saying is on a neutral field, Chiefs would be like 3 or 4 point underdog. In Cincinnati, it would be close to a touchdown. That just seems insane to me. Like, I love the Bengals. They are doing some awesome stuff. Their defense is super underrated, but their offensive line still has problems. They are still facing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, a Chiefs team that may not be as elite as we've seen in previous years, but they still have a good defensive line. They still can make plays. They still have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Like, I understand a little bit of reason for concern, but the fact that the lines moved as much, it just seems overstated based on where we expect his ankle to be.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is it's basically they're assuming that Patrick Mahomes' effectiveness is completely taking a hit with him losing his mobility. But when you look at that if you just look at it from a pure perspective of him being a quarterback, like, some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL are immobile. I mean, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan in his heyday, like Ben Roethlisberger, he didn't really run. He was just able to elude the pressure, which even on a bum knee or bum ankle, he's going to be able to step up, make that slight little adjustment in the pocket to the right or the left. He's just going to have to find guys open, which he's incredible at. So I don't take too much out of him being hurt.
And Jacksonville like made him move a little bit, and he still had a really good EPA per play. He was still really productive against what the Jags were doing, and obviously
he's going to be hopped up on so many drugs. Like he's not even going to be able to feel his lower body. Like let's be honest here.
Yeah, so it will be interesting to see. I don't know. I feel like the sentiment around Cincinnati, especially after beating Buffalo in Buffalo, is gone a little too far. But
I did want to hit on too. Like I think that the total dropping as far as it has too is great for me because I'm going to smash the over. Like I don't see this game being played in the low 40s or mid 40s. Like I'm expecting, like we've seen the last couple times they've played, 27-24, 28-23, like something of that nature, like 50, 53, 54. So the fact that this has dropped under that 50 mark, like this is a smash play over for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like remembering, like obviously the Bengals have beat the Chiefs the past, I think 3 times they played. But they were up, what was that, 2 years ago when they were up 27, or they were up, basically they were up, like they were 4-1 on the money line or 6-1, depending on where you look. They were down like 4 or 5 touchdowns against Mahomes, and they came all the way back. That was against the Rams. Was that last year?
No, I think that was last year. It was 21-7 at one point in the second quarter.
Yeah, so they came all the way back. I had the Bengals money line in that game. That was really nice. But
that just goes. Their last 3 meetings have all been 51 or more points.
Yeah,
regardless of Mahomes' status, like he's still going to be able to throw the ball. He could probably be better than half the quarterbacks in the league sitting down. I mean, let's just be honest here.
Yeah, it was. No, it must have been 2 years ago when they were up by a lot. No, that's
while Kyle looks for that, like it's something else we're looking at. Like everybody's going to be focused on Jamar Chase because he's looked like the all-world wide receiver that he is. But I really think that this is a T. Higgins week for Cincinnati. He's caught a touchdown or had over 60 receiving yards in each of the last 3 meetings against this team. Burrow is going to have to pass. Like this is not going to be a methodical type of game. This is going to be let's put some points on the board to avoid Kansas City being able to put up points. And I don't expect Cincinnati to run away with it like they did against Buffalo and have to kind of sit on it and run Mixon. Like this is going to be a back and forth type game. So I like T. Higgins to have a way better game than he's produced the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I guess if you like how do you expect the game to go? How do you expect the Bengals to be productive? Because it seems like it's going to be a lot of Joe Burrow. It seems like a lot of, whether it's Chase or whether it's T. Higgins or Hayden Hurst. But I think there is a path where they're a little more run game. But I mean that feels like a Bengals team of previous years.
Yeah, well, again, like when you look at their past 2 matchups, when they played Baltimore, that game was a lot closer than it should have been. But we talked about that in the wild card round. Like divisional opponents, especially AFC North opponents, they know each other so well. They're able to limit what each other does well. And we saw that with the limiting of Joe Burrow's passing attack. And then last week against Buffalo, Cincinnati jumped out to a pretty good they had control of the game from the get-go and right away in the first quarter when they were up 2 scores on Buffalo. And it was clear that the Bills were not hitting on all cylinders. So I really don't think that the Bengals were showed anything in terms of their passing game. And I think even if they're running the ball here, Kansas City is going to have to score fast enough that this is going to keep Cincy on its toes on offense as well, to where they can't just sit on the ball.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
And we've learned it before. Like it doesn't matter 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Any time on the clock is too much for Patrick Mahomes. So whether you think you're just going to be able to sit on it, the Chiefs could call a timeout. So they're just going to have to score as many points as possible here. No, not like, oh, let's just prevent them from being on the field. Like that doesn't work against guys like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I can't find the game. Maybe I felt like the Chiefs were up a lot more than like 7 points or whatever it was, but you know, I remember that at the time. Anyways, should we talk some of our best bets?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with the first game, and we'll start with the Niners because I am going to take the San Francisco 49ers money line. They are going to Philadelphia. They are winning the game. You can get plus 126 right now at FanDuel, plus money with a team. It is interesting to me that there seems to be a lot of Eagles buzz. There's clearly a lot of money coming in, and that line is just chilling at 2.5. That says, come bet Philly, everybody. You can get it at less than a field goal. Come on down. We got plenty of room. Anybody who wants a seat, come on down. We got plenty of room.
Again, everybody's anticipating the Brock Purdy collapse.
I just think this defense is insane. I think the offense is full of weapons, and Brock Purdy just has to get the ball to their hands. And whether it's Christian McCaffrey, whether it's Devo, whether it's Kittle, like I love the Eagles offense. I want Jalen Hurts to win MVP and think he probably should, even though I have the
that's
ticket.
Just a selfish opinion, Kyle.
Yeah, well, I mean, but he's been incredible this season. We saw them take a couple steps back when he got hurt, and they came back in. They picked up right where they were, and just have been dominant ever since. So, I think there's a good story, a good narrative there. I think the Eagles are a team that should be really good for the next few years. But I just think this is the Niners year. I think they put it together. I think everything's coming together at the right time. I think Kyle Shanahan is so impressive being able to do this with the third string quarterback, a final pick in the draft, whatever. Brock Purdy has shown poise. There's also the thing floating around, which I thought was kind of interesting, where these both Hurts and Purdy played against each other in college, Iowa State and Oklahoma. That's just kind of a fun little wrinkle. But yeah, so my first play is going to be the Niners money line. I'm getting plus 126 over at FanDuel.
Yeah, and we're going to stay here. And my first bet, I talked about it. I'm going to take the under 46.5 here. It opened at, I believe it was 47 or 47.5 in some places. So it's already on the move. I just think that this is a spot where this is a very defensive laden game where both teams are, battling the entire day to figure stuff out in terms of, well, how are we going to solve this rush defense? And it's who's going to be able to make the better plays through the passing game. And yes, Philly is extremely explosive, but I don't think you can rely on that in terms of scoring when that's basically going to be the only way you're going to get into the end zone is by a big play. Because I do not think either offense is going to be able to methodically like dink and dunk for multiple scores. This maybe once on their first set of first possession where they have everything planned out, but then after that, it's really going to be chess match. I think this is like a 21-18 or some weird ass score, 21-17 type of game.
Yeah, no, I think that makes some sense. It's wild to me as we roll into my next pick that we're talking about Patrick Mahomes at home as an underdog. I know he's been hurt, and I know the Bengals have looked good, but this is only the second time he's ever been an underdog at home. He did lose that game to Buffalo, but I can't let this go by. I'm taking the Chiefs money line. It's obviously if you can get like 2 or 2.5, like obviously take it, but it's like a point pretty much everywhere. Yeah. So I'm just going to take the money line. It's plus 110 at DK. And that's going to be my second best bet.
Yeah, for me, in that Chiefs Bengals game, like the side, like as I think the Chiefs are going to win, but again, my game picks have been absolutely atrocious, so I'm going a little bit of a different direction here, and I'm going to go with Jerick McKinnon to have over 29.5 or 28.5 receiving yards over at DK, and it's minus 120, so it's juiced to the over here. But I just think there is no possible way the Chiefs can win this game if they do not get him involved out of the backfield to prevent Patrick Mahomes from getting hit. So this is, again, another play where I think you can take the alternate line and go to the 39, 40, 40+ yard thing for him. So yeah, McKinnon over his receiving yards, whatever it's set at the minimum. And I think that's going to be a smash play for me.
You can get 26.26.5 over at Unibet and Bet Rivers if you have access to that. A lot of 27.5s most places. The best price at DK is -115. BetMGM has it at -120. So yeah, I think that's a good bet. I think the Travis Kelce stuff is interesting too. But it's just he's so dominant, but he's also priced effectively. So receiving yards 77.5, receptions is 6.5, but it's like -130 to -150. So
And his
that's
anytime score is like almost 1-2.
yeah. So if you want a same game parlay it with receptions, yards, and a touchdown, I think that's a great way to attack it. Just hope expect him to just if he has a game, he's going to have a game.
Let me add too. I still think, regardless of him having a bum ankle, if the Chiefs have a goal line possession here, running a naked boot with Patrick Mahomes may be the easiest score that they have all day, because nobody in their right mind is going to think that the Chiefs, who already saw Mahomes get injured on a quarterback sneak, are going to allow him to do a run near the goal line. So I think that that could be a surprising play here, because this may be the best number you get on a Patrick Mahomes anytime touchdown, considering he's scored an anytime in every single playoffs run, and he's scored one in the 3 of the 4 divisional rounds he had played, and because he got hurt last week, he didn't even get a chance to. So he's basically due, in my opinion, for that. And this is probably a good spot to get way better odds than you would normally get.
I still like Noah Gray as an anytime scorer. He's out on the field a lot, +750. Sky Moore +800. There's no time like the first time, and maybe we'll see if old Rojo's active. But you can get him at
no, that would have to
15-1.
Yeah, that would have to be either the Chiefs getting smashed or Kansas City blowing out Cincinnati for him to score. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, the Belldozer.
No way they're giving him the ball near the goal line.
Belldozer is 22-1 to score a points bet.
Okay, if you have FanDuel, Patrick Mahomes is 8-1 on an anytime touchdown. That's like double what he was last week, folks.
Yeah. I like that call. For my third and final play, I am going to go to the prop market as well, and I'm going to take AJ Brown over 69.5 receiving yards. Devonta Smith has been great. He's been awesome. I've been on his props and his receptions and all that stuff the past couple weeks, but it's AJ Brown week. 2 weeks ago, we saw what DK did to this defense. Last week, we saw what CeeDee Lamb did to this defense. I think they are big play. You can get a big play on them. There's a couple ways where it happens. Even if the Eagles are down, there could be a big take a deep shot, see what happens. AJ Brown catches it, runs into the end zone. 70 yards is what you need. BetMGM has it at -115. I think he crushes that. You could also look at alt lines if you want to go, closer to 100. I think that's very much in play. But my third and final play is going to be AJ Brown over 69.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, that fits into my expectation of neither team being able to run the ball very well, and they're going to have to move the ball through the air. And again, Philly is one of the best teams when it comes to going deep, and AJ Brown is fantastic in those 1v1 situations. For me, I'm going to stay at the wide receiver position. I talked about him at the end of when we were breaking down Kansas City, Cincinnati, but that's T. Higgins. I'm going to same game parlay him, and I'm going to go 55 or more receiving yards and a touchdown, which you could get that at DK right now in their same game parlay for +310, which I think is definitely doable in a game that I think Cincinnati is going to have to continue to throw the ball just to make sure they run away with this. If they are leading, regardless of how this game flow goes, they cannot sit on the ball against the Chiefs. And I think it's T's game, not Jamar Chase, or at least both are able to put up numbers. But T's numbers have been kind of coming down because he hasn't been performing as well. So this is a good time to take advantage of that.
Yep. I like that call quite a bit. The other thing I have is who screws this up? Anytime touchdown parlay, Christian McCaffrey and Travis Kelce. Nobody does.
Honestly, I would say McCaffrey to be.
Yeah, if his quad or whatever or his calf is all messed up. But I think both of them can easily score, and you could have a nice day. You could even find a third piece to throw in there, whether you like Jamar Chase or T. Higgins or AJ Brown.
Like
that could be fun too. And Eli Mitchell is over 3-1 to score a touchdown. I don't hate that either, especially if this game gets in the fourth quarter, he gets a chance to run one in.
Oh gosh.
That could be a fun way to do it too. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. Brian, let's recap our card, give the units, and let's get out of here. I have 3 bets. I have the Niners money line plus 126. I have 3 units there. I have the Chiefs money line plus 110. I have 3 units there. And AJ Brown over 69.5 receiving yards for my 4 final units. Those are my plays.
All right, for me, I'm going to go 49ers, Eagles under 46.5. I'm only going to go 2 units there because there is a path to a surprising over here if we get some weirdness happening, defensive touchdowns of that nature. For my favorite play of the week, it's Jerick McKinnon over 28.5 receiving yards over at DK. I'm going to go 5 units on that. Again, I don't think there's a shot that KC wins this without getting him involved. And then for my last play, T. Higgins, same game parlay. 55 or more receiving yards and a touchdown at plus 310. I'm going to go 3 units on that.
And if you're scoring at home, you take the over in Niners Eagles. You take Jerick McKinnon under, and you take T. Higgins under receiving yards.
Yeah,
and you cash all of them.
Yeah,
that's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. We'll be off next week for football, but maybe we can sneak in a little NASCAR content. You never know. We'll be back for Super Bowl. Let us know if there's any props you want us to make sure we hit on. And we'll talk to you guys next time.